Well, thanks for having me. I live in Little Rock, and I'm a photographer. I came from Michigan. Actually, this started this as, I went sort of unconventional. I apprenticed, but I didn't really know I was apprenticing. So I never went to college or anything. I never studied photography ever. So this is me in Michigan. That's me on the right. And this gentleman, his name was Balthazar Korat, and he was an architecture photographer, one of the few at the time. And I started with, as a teenager, working around his yard. I came from a big family of 9 kids, so I was at the right age for doing something like that. So then he brought me into the studio. I spent 9 years there, with the last 3 years photographing contemporary architecture. So, probably none of you really know that there's a field out there of architectural photography that's been a tradition, and architects use photographers like me to photograph their work, document their work, so they can get published, whatever, when buildings are mostly brand new. So I have a whole foundation of work. When I left, like I said, the last 3 years in Michigan, I was photographing pretty much full time, doing different things. So here's just a few from the very early parts of my career, which would have been like 40 years ago, this photograph. I'd be taking my whole background has been photographing architecture. This is a Detroit scape in downtown Detroit. I mostly used large format cameras. They call them view cameras. We get underneath the cloth and heavy tripod. Not so much anymore, but they were then. Let me jump to that. This is an image I did in Detroit. This is that's a 70-story building in the middle. We call it the Renaissance Center. The Museum of Modern Art in New York made a poster of this image for a show on architecture, as well as a cover of a catalog, invitation to the show, and all that. So that was kind of cool. That was when I was probably nearly your guys' age, or maybe a little. When I shot that, I don't know, I was probably about 22, and still in Detroit. This is Philip Johnson, is a famous architect in New York. This is his private study in New Canaan. I have 2 pictures of it here, that being one. And this is going up close to that window. My first trip to New York, Cora, a Hungarian that was teaching me or whatever, I was apprenticing with. The architect of the World Trade Center was from lived and worked out of our area there, right in Detroit. His name was Yamasaki. At any rate, so this was an assignment. Ford went there and did a bunch of photographs, and then he sent me, so one of my earliest trips, I think my first trip to New York was get some photographs from New Jersey. That's being one of them. So that was probably shot in 1979. While I was still in Detroit, I got an assignment to go to Pakistan, Karachi, Pakistan, to shoot this as a nurse's school. And I grabbed that shot of the band, and so that stayed with me. And while I was in Karachi, I did some shots on my own. So I was really young. This is a view camera again. So many people would it was hard to actually even do photographs from the street because people would just come up to you and surround you. But anyway, you can see those are 2 kind of pictures where the buildings in the backdrop was my focus and catching other things. So that's before I even came to Arkansas. Here I am in Arkansas, downtown on Capitol Avenue, probably 1980 or 81. I started an office and I called myself the Arkansas office. So I was the Arkansas office on Capitol Avenue, but mostly just left. I didn't work within 500 miles of Little Rock. My jobs were in Chicago and Atlanta, and then it just started growing, as you'll see. That's a Chicago scene that I did. Empire State Building. I did that. Actually, I was working for a limestone company that supplied the limestone on it. And, went up there in the fog. This one particular shot, view, again using a 4x5 view camera, and probably shot a hole before we put these whole film holders in there, and there's 2 sheets on each side. I must have shot 40 sheets of film, and because it kept changing, and this was my favorite one. I left this in there because I did that. It was back when this is, and it's topical now because that's Trump Tower on the left. So worth keeping, I guess. That was all the magical Trump Tower, the gold one, the glass one. That's Trump Tower as what you see pictures of today. I started picking up Simon's. This is in Stuttgart, Germany. The Stats Gallery, so a big museum like that, on the scale of Crystal Bridges or something like that. Big place. That's an interior one. This is for an architect called I.M. Pei. And this is in the mountains of Japan near Kyoto. It's an entry to a museum. So I would get sent there. I'd probably spend a week, shooting this place in and out with my view camera. This is Faye Jones' Thorn Crown Chapel. I did this when I first was visiting Arkansas before I moved there. We met some friends in Eureka Springs, so I was on the outside and shooting through the glass. That's what I was reflecting. And that's another Faye Jones building down in Mississippi. And that's just shooting at night. I didn't add anything to it. That's another Faye Jones image up in Bella Vista. So I like the layering. It's a detail, but it's also got a lot of layering and stuff like that. When I first got here in Arkansas, the Corning Museum of Glass, which is in Corning, New York, I had photographed their museum while I was up in Michigan, and they invited me to come photograph main plant, which is their main plant, before they tore it down. So that was kind of a nice assignment to get freshly here in Arkansas to get a call from a museum like that. And so this is a couple from that series. And this, of course, so this is totally gone, and I roamed around for a couple of days, I guess. Another whole series I have is Andy Warhol's Last Factory in New York. So I got invited to take some photographs inside his last factory by a magazine, but I kept the assignment going, and these, which all was just self-generated interest in work, and I got a whole bunch of them. That's Warhol's factory. You guys have probably heard of Keith Haring. That's Keith Haring did that elephant. These are Warhol pieces here, there, things shipping out. Yeah. So I did those from 1982 to his death in 87. And this is looking down on his factory. He had 3 entrances. I couldn't get in the other entrance over here, but that T-shaped. At that time, too, there was a club called the Palladium, and I was there during the opening week. This is a view camera hanging over the dance field, view camera for it, but it's a transparency. These photographs, so those were taken in 1985, total up to years, but I get calls for these photographs for books and shows and art prints and all that kind of stuff to this day. And I'm not sure if I've had one this year. I've had some interest already this year, again, on this, but all sorts of things with these photographs. I don't think I have 2 of them in there. Yeah, I'm dealing with somebody right now who wants 3 of them for a book. This I went down to Lima, Peru, and shot this bank for an architect. This is in London, a famous architect called Richard Rogers. He just passed away. He did the Pompidou in Paris. This is his residence in London. And again, I've been asked to go to these places. So pretty much everything I'm showing you now were commissions. An apartment in Chicago. I kind of tape the camera to the ground. I'm underneath the table. Those are the legs of the table. The Milwaukee Art Museum, I did a whole set on that. The Museum of Modern Art in New York, all those years later, commissioned me and started in 2004 to shoot their new building. I flew in there 13 times to do photographs for them. This is a pinhole camera that I got from an old friend of mine who was from Arkansas. It was a 17-inch negative. I even dragged that there to do some things. So I would cut down color aerial film and shoot color with it. Oops. So that's the garden, and there's the garden in the building from one of the buildings. And there, that's the same. This is in Jerusalem, the Yad Vashem, which is like the Holocaust Museum. Yad Vashem. Moshe Safdie is the architect. He's the architect of Crystal Bridges. So I was working for him 30 years before he worked here. So almost that. I did a lot of work for him. This is inside Yad Vashem. And there's Crystal Bridges. This is in Dallas in the National Sculpture Center in downtown. This is James Turrell. But this whole thing is closed down, I think, because somebody built a high-rise, and you can see that high-rise from the inside, so he had to close down. So this was in the early days of it. And this is the University of Arkansas, built by architects. It's the architecture building by Marlon Blackwell, who's I've done a lot of work for. Matter of fact, we just finished a 522-page book that he's going to come out within a couple months, and it's like all my photographs and a bunch of personal ones he used. I was in Singapore for Moshe Safdie. Went there 3 times. This is that pool. You've probably seen images of this building. It's pretty iconic, this building there. This is a museum, sports museum down in Louisiana. This is Gaudi in Barcelona, and that's shot with a pinhole. So I don't take the pinhole out anymore, but for a while I did. Then there's Auburn University has this program called the Rural Studio, and I've been involved with them since the beginning, which was about, it was like 1994. I've done 3 books. My photographs have been compiled and are in 3 books. These are all student built, so students design and build these things. They have architects come from all over the country who want to help advise them, the students, each year. So you'll see a bunch of stuff here from that program. So that's the same house, but years later. Oh, here I shot this one. This is their first house that this is the, go back. That was the first house that we just showed, and that was the owners. And this is another one of his houses. So again, the students built these, and they're given to the, this is a baseball field there in town, it's in Greensboro, Alabama. And it's where Walker Evans did a lot of his photographs, and was in that area. Here's they're celebrating the opening of the fire station. So can you believe it? The students built that cool building, designed it, built it. And there's the townspeople out for the opening. That's another one of their projects. they can get away with all these things because they're totally in rural Alabama. You know. Here's the students building a community center in the town. And they have these annual pig roasts, so there's one of the guys who was supposed to be watching the pig at night. Fell asleep. I discovered this silo there right there in town, and eventually, well, actually, I bought it from the farmer. It's still sitting there. It's just I started shooting it, and we set up a surveillance camera on it for a year, and just shooting thousands of pictures from one scene. Unfortunately, there's me checking out the camera. We have a video, but it's not going to play. This particular one, oh, strange. It looks strange from here, but anyway, can't show that one. It's the one video that's not working. We had a bonfire in it. So I thought it could be dismantled and taken to some urban location or something like that. Not that it still could. So I did those here. This is in Gould, and I really was keen on this particular site and those the look of those silos. And so I had a friend of mine who was here, who was working with me, said, yeah, you could climb up there's a ladder up that shaft there. He said, yeah, you could climb up. Well, we put a surveillance camera at the top of it. It's still there today, so it's been up there for 10 years or something like that. There was a point where I said that I was like littering the countryside with leftover cameras and stuff like that. But you can still see the camera today. I'll show a couple of these videos will play. So anyway, the camera's up looking at the second one. It's on the first one, looking at the second one. So I have all these clips. They would be writing to a hard drive and a computer in there and stuff like that. So, just to see what I got, because I got a lot of cool things on that silo. And it's just, I think this starts. Let's go to the next one. Okay. So it's kind of like a still photograph, but kind of funny thing. You have to set up the camera, find the view, and then go away for months and stuff like that. And then pick up the images off the hard drive. Okay, so another series I did was the Brothels of Navados. It's the only place prostitution is legal, and I started in 1985. I have a whole collection. I did the whole scene, and I have a book. In 2001, we did a book with Princeton Architectural Press, and they're the same ones that did the real studio book, 3 books, but I'll show you some of these. This is the Chicken Ranch. That's the Chicken Ranch dance floor. So I mean, like this doesn't even exist anymore. I mean, there is the Chicken Ranch, but none of this furniture or anything. It's all changed. This is these are all brothels that I'm showing in this little collection. So at the same time I'm doing this, I'm also doing all those commissions for architects and stuff that have been shown. So I would go in some that were open, abandoned, and I had a guidebook that showed me where to go, sort of where they were, but there weren't any photographs, and so I kind of saw things out. You see the timers and the CB radios. And this was crazy because I'd already been in there all day, and that was back when I was shooting film, so you have to load film holders, right? So I was all out of film, I need to reload, and I said, you got a dark room? And they said, well, I'll look in there, and so I go in that room and discovered that. Of course, that was a find, and to make the photograph too. Someone in like a magazine out in Australia published the photographs, because after we came out with the book or wherever, they got published all over the place. But they ran a set of my photographs in there, and they made their own coat of arms for me. I guess if you can read that. This is still one of the brothels, and like it was like a coming together of the owners, commercial aspect of it, and the girls too. So like this owner decided to put up a fence in front of the trailer. There's nice kind of rock looking stuff on the other side. This is a personal suite of the people who ran the Mustang Ranch, which was probably the most famous brothel out there. And of course that's all gone. They probably aren't alive anymore, but I got in and spent one day in there. Okay, that's off the brothels. Here's in Birmingham, Alabama. This is Vulcan, and he had been taken apart, and we got in somehow to take that. That's one of my pinhole photographs. And I used the pinhole camera and went around with doing some few Katrina shots from New Orleans to Biloxi or wherever. And so this is from that pinhole camera, which is like that, big old thing. And this was in the Southbound collection, not in the show. I call this one Alice and the FEMA trailers. Those are FEMA trailers. I mean, there was that point in the news when people were really, were asking where those FEMA trailers were. And so I was down there, found that shot. And this is in Biloxi. It's kind of, so you can see where it just ripped through that boat, which was a casino. This is here in Stuttgart. This was, the front and the back, of a cotton gin. I made this diptych, great big diptych, and had it in the Delta. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Delta exhibition that the Arkansas Art Center puts on. It's been going on for a lot of years. I won it one year, which is a photograph here, but this was a couple years ago. And then so this print was enormous. I made it in New York and framed and everything, the whole thing, 9 yards there. In the Historic Arkansas Museum in Little Rock, they had bought this for their collection, so that was really awesome. After it had been in the Art Center. This is a dog food factory in North Little Rock. I've exhibited this in New York in a show I had there. This is the back side of it. So I've been shooting, I got it, so from being out there shooting all this contemporary architecture, I brought my focus back into Arkansas, which is what you're seeing here now. And this is gone now. I shot this a couple years ago. This whole thing's been taken down. This grain elevator was in Augusta. So I've sort of had my eye out for industrial structures. This one I'm blowing up really big. I don't know, do you guys know Hill Station in Hillcrest, the restaurant? There's 5 of my pieces that are I'm in the process of getting them made in New York. And so I make a file, I send it to the lab in New York, they send me a print. So when I get that print back, that becomes my new palette, really. So then I look at that print, study it, run back and forth between that and my computer. I have the test print. I get a test print from them. And I run back and forth to my computer, looking at that original file that made that first test print and making new adjustments. And so then I get another test print from my new file, I send them the file. And then if I like it, I say, go ahead and print it. If I want to see another test. This one's actually in its 3rd test, so I'll wait for it. So Hill Station will have these 5 pretty big prints coming up. Okay, so there's another thing. This is all in Arkansas. We were in Wilson, Arkansas, and there's a bunch of things, these industrial buildings, they call them Muskogee houses. So we popped inside, my wife and I were out together, and she said, "You better come look at this." I was on the outside shooting. I got to give her credit for getting me inside. And so all this cottonseed is like stacked up, and I thought like, wow, this stuff is really cool. So I followed it for like a year or more in Wilson, and Pine Bluff, and Helena, Brinkley. So those are the main ones. And so these piles of cottonseed are constantly constantly changing. This isn't a moment. So I thought they were the coolest interiors I could find here in the state at the time. They're like icebergs when I first saw the first one. So I mean, you have to be following the season when this is happening and stuff, and get permission. Although in Helena, they told me not to come in, and I would go in on Sundays. I mean, after I had quite a few shots of it. So I just love being able to do this right here in the state. But I have a huge collection of this stuff. I would drive all the way over to Helena to get the opportunity to get a new interior. And was my submission to the Delta when it was virtual, when the pandemic started, so there's 12 of them. This is actually virtual right now, what you're looking at. So that was my submission. It got in the Delta. And here's the colored one. There was one that I found that had a nice green at the top, green glass or plastic or whatever. So it really was a nice color. And that's just outside of Helena, in the midst of all this cotton. They're processing it. And then, as you can see, it's a knife. Here's a shot of a chicken coop. So you can see my whole thing is mostly has to do with buildings. So these are all in Arkansas. So these are things I found, industrial finds here in Arkansas. And tornado clipped this one. So a friend of mine I'd seen I saw that was announced, that there had been hit. This is over in DeWitt. And so I shot out there in 1 or 2 days or something like that. And did a series on it. I like that one. This is right here in Little Rock. You guys know this mostly, or we're in Conway, but I shot that years ago in Mississippi. And still like that a lot. This is in Mississippi too. This is a preacher's bus. It's on Highway 61 north of Vicksburg, but it's gone now. They preserved the bus. They took it somewhere. I don't know where they took it, but I ended up being inside before they did that. This is in Oklahoma, so part of my Main Street stuff here. Actually, I just posted this on Instagram for Valentine's Day. This is one of my favorite Pine Bluff buildings. And it's constantly changing too, but I don't think this is an early shot for me. This is in Alabama. This was in, I don't know if you guys saw Southbound. I think this was one of my prints in Southbound. This is in Mayfield, no, this is in Arkansas, and, okay. But anyway, I've printed this, made pretty big prints of this for somebody who wanted it. And this is kind of cool, this is in DeWitt. You know, you gotta stop when you see something that you like, when you're out in this environment, out in the landscape and stuff like that, especially with buildings. You better stop and shoot it if you think you like it, because the next time we went through here, it was just all painted gray. But, I mean, this almost looks like giant bird stuff, you know, but anyway, I don't know how it got like that, but this is right on the courthouse square, too. Town here called Cash. This was in one of the prints in the southbound show. This I liked a lot. To find that was awesome. That was in like Mariana. So that's a water tower being worked on. So then I thought, oh God, I could maybe find some more water towers, these things. So I started trying to get contacts, and nothing kind of, I never liked anything as much as that. So, but try it again. The Z Motel, this is on I-30, I got interested in that. And it's gone. The sign, that isn't it? I thought the sign was cool. The whole place is gone, but the sign was really good. This is in Pocahontas. I took this photograph, and this won the Delta, the 58th Delta. This shot did, and I bought the calf. Well, first of all, I wanted to get the calf, and then as we had run into it when we came through town, I talked to the owner and stuff, and he said, yeah, and then he talked to his wife, and then the next thing you know, the price had gone way up there because she had found that other people were interested around the country and all that, and so, and the calf. And I said, well, I'm sitting in Little Rock, I go, well, I want to stay in the game for the calf. And I said, well, I need to photograph it. I mean, that's what I do. I'm doing Main Street stuff and all that. So I need to come make a photograph. So I came and made a photograph, and then while I was making the photograph, I made the deal, and it wasn't so expensive. And then I won that award, so we call it the Golden Calf. And I had it, actually I had it. Is it okay? Another thing I was working on was Polygamist in Utah. This is a family photograph that I shot in one of the homes in Utah with a polygamous settlement. So I went all through Utah shooting different polygamous settlements. This is what you kind of would find in one of these towns in Colorado City. You'd see the smaller house and then the ballooned up, unfinished, a lot of times the unfinished addition to accommodate the family and stuff. And here's some empty nesters. I mean, they had like 30 children, a couple of wives and stuff like that. And you can see they had their own basketball and a pool, and slide. This is a cave that they stored some canned stuff in, and we got in there. There wasn't any electricity, so those were my flashlights. I just bought it the hardware because I wasn't anticipating that when I got there that I would need to do something like that. There was no electricity, so that was just panning some. I thought it was a pretty good location to get a good photograph. This is the zoo. So this is the little section on the polygamist out there. This is the zoo that got abandoned. I was out there doing that when there was the leader, the prophet, was Warren Jeffs, and he was like going through trial and all that down the street. So we're in the next town over, but. This is the house there in the town. And this was like a giant, this was down there, a giant checkers. So much like the Brothels, which was a book, I kind of followed this polygamous thing out too. This is polygamist in Utah and Moab. Big rocks. So if you're ever in Moab and you want to try to find these people, you can. But I'm anxious to go back. I'd like to see how much soot is on the walls now. And whatever. That's polygamist, ended up in British Columbia. Hundreds, this guy had like 100 children. Funeral homes. I started funeral homes here in the South. This is in Helena. I was like, wow, look at that. The whole place is run down, closed, and there's like these two white hearses. So that's launched me into a whole year or so photographing funeral homes in the South. This one's down in Louisiana. It's an old car dealership. So again, all these are large format captures. The view camera or large format. Digital, which I use. I don't use film anymore. This is in Pine Bluff. Part of the funeral home series. This was in Arkansas Delta too, and picked up an honorable mention or something. This is a favorite. This was in a Delta too. Shot this in Vicksburg. This is in Southbound. This is in the show Southbound. Those two together were. This is in Alabama. So I'd go through a small town when I had time, and I would be like funeral homes near me on my phone and try to find where they were. It was never very hard. I would only one out of every 15 would yield a photograph. This is here in Stuttgart, but not anymore. It's kind of like a showroom. The most basic showroom you could find. Well, there's plenty of other basic ones too. Selma. This is in Stuttgart. You see this was a house that was a funeral home, and I would ask this family, it was no longer a funeral home when I shot this. And I asked the family, could I have the sign? Could I find the sign for you? So I asked her for 3 years, go through there, and she finally sold it to me. So I had it restored, and we just took it down. It was in a show that I was in, with some of my photographs, and it was kind of cool that my first sort of found piece, put it up in a museum. So this is a starting thing for me. With 3 of my photographs, and that we just took it down. That's in Helena, and I own this sign too. What you see here. So I have that in my studio just as it is. Some pieces fell off, but I've got it all tight. This is, I think it's kind of cool. So I shot this in cotton plant, and I thought that, it seemed pretty interesting, that whole facade there. I was like, wow. The school is just like falling down. So I was like trying to see if I could get that too. And I never was getting anywhere. And then one of the next times I went through, it was gone. I'm like, oh, I missed that. But I was talking to somebody in town, and she thought it was still around somewhere. She'd seen it somewhere, but. So we were in town pre-pandemic in Cotton Plant and talked to some folks, and I asked, what happened to the sign? And then he goes, well, let me call someone. So he calls somebody, and he gets to the guy and goes, if it's still here, it's in my backyard. And I'm like, wow, we go on over there, and sure enough, there was the back of it. There was the sign. It was all like destroyed on the back. I couldn't even, it was too heavy to lift up, but I made arrangements to buy it and pick it up, so it came with a trailer, whatever. And my friend and I, we picked it up, and so I was going to show you this little video. I think it's got to show. This, I set up my drone. And we had not, there's the sign, obviously, and I didn't know what it looked like. So this is kind of like looking at it in real time, what we were going to see. So now, I think Yeah, we picked it up that day. We got it on the thing. That's the shape it's in now. And I have that stored away for now. That's the back of it. We took all that back off, but the back looks pretty beautiful. So I'd like, again, just like the funeral home sign that I had at the HAM, Historic Art Museum, I would hope to have this up in a florid thing with all my other stuff, my photographs. This I found in Pine Bluff, and I thought, anyway, I love that ghost sign there as far as, so I contacted the guy who owned the building, and he lived in Los Angeles and he owned a bunch of things there. I now have the sign. It's in 9 pieces, or 9 or 10 pieces. And I haven't done anything with it yet, but I think it's kind of cool. I was in South Korea. This is a little bit of a joke. I was studying with a drone master. Not really, but I hired him to take some pictures for me. It was before I picked up my own drone to fly some drones. So I fly drones all the time now. This is one of my drone shots here. Just like, I could get there in 35 minutes, and find this. So again, so I'm putting all my experience with shooting architecture into design, and always heavily designed. As you can see with my stuff, it's all kind of design, or if not, like, well, here's some more. So I have like a whole series of this kind of stuff right here in my backyard, which I think is kind of cool. You don't have to, photographers go all over the place to do series, and I decided that I'm just gonna, take it. I'm always shooting, whether it be like commissions or whatever, traveling everywhere. But to just go in my own backyard and do all sorts of things here in Arkansas. So that big snowstorm we had last year, I ran out and looked at some of my favorite things. Luckily I had the right car for it, RAV4, and I could get out in the afternoon and the roads were okay enough. But I mean, this is literally right during all that snow that we had last year in February 21st. Around there. So these are all things I tooled around that I'd liked and shot and admired before, but and this little building here coming off that white with red, I thought was pretty cool. This is Tucker, who I know the family, and we shot that with Ariel, and the building in the background is like their family home too, so it's not much left. I always admired the way that one building, that one huge rectangle sat on top of that, and that was cool to get in the snow. And, I mean, it kind of looks like architecture that I've shot in Los Angeles for contemporary architects to do. So with the drone, I'm looking at this gate. This is Kia or Scott, I'm not sure which one, I forget. So going around until, why did I land here, or didn't land, why did I decide to shoot here? It was because you see that little structure, this little structure on the bottom right, the way the legs read and all that. So again, it's my training from working with architects, I think. This I've shot in all conditions. That's the same building, or the same structure. I don't know how to back this thing up. It's funny, the day I found out about this, a friend told me about it, who knows agricultural things in the area. He sent me a snapshot. I went out that day because I saw the clouds and all that, and I really don't like to photograph on sunny days, my own stuff. It's just, especially a blue day. I do not like to go out on blue sky days, and really, so I would much rather, I mean, if you look, I should have said that earlier, and you'd see that those pictures are all shot on cloudy days, most of them. They just look better, everything about it. Okay, so this is the series I'm into now, this is the last one, so I'm gonna show you. I'm shooting duck blinds. So I'm like out on boats and things like that with these people, and I think this one's gonna be in Hill Station too. I'm like a huge fan of this one in Hill Station. So I'm up, whether at some point I have a tripod, this is out of a boat, and I get they're usually duck hunters or whatever, the guy who knew this is even sort of more mystery. This is in the sunken lands of Arkansas. So they add a little more mystery to it. But, so I'm in a boat, just barely hanging off the side, and I'm real particular about where he's gonna set it. Do it again. You know, these people are gonna, they're doing it as a favor mostly. There's a couple people I've hired to just take me out into this region. I mean, to find that, I think that one's cool. But here's another super cool find, I think. This is a abandoned duck blind in the sunken lands taken over by beavers. So I mean, they're kind of I don't know, I think it's pretty special. So I'm all into it. This is the toilet out in the woods in Stuttgart on a real, this guy's got about as much money as the Waltons. Anyway, it was kind of nice he let me out there, but I mean, I like that one. This one is down on Grassy Lake. I'm just starting to develop this series. I got tons of things I've shot tons of stuff, and I've only started to bring them up. Just today, I brought that up today. But this is on Grassy Lake, and as you can see, everything's still driven by design. And look how wonderful. I'm standing in there at least up to my knees in my tripod, and really expensive camera. I almost fell in the mud about a week ago with it. The tripod stopped me from falling. So that one's I've got waders on. I think it's pretty fun. This one is on Reelfoot Lake. They have 200 blinds up there. It's up in Tennessee, and I'm still trying to get to go out there again. And that's that one place that had the toilet, but you can see this sort of this landscape of blinds. It's kind of sort of an architecture of deceit, we're thinking. This is being blown up in Hill Station. This isn't a duck blind, but it's close to it. This is going to be a huge print in Hill Station too. So with duck blinds, I'm running into taxidermists too, so I want that to be part of the series. And check this out. This is a new discovery. This is outside of Stuttgart. I knew that there was blinds there, but I found this not too long ago, and I've got a guy whose property this is on lined up to. We're going to go out there with 2 people in it. It'll be a little bit vaudeville, and he's going to be fatigues and all that. And as if they get in this thing and try to shoot geese. And this thing was made and brought over from some guy from Virginia, owns it. And of course, I was wanting to buy it from him. I think it'd be cool with my things. And he says not for sale. But everything's, I haven't given up, and I'm going to probably do the shoot next week. The guy's going to be ready to take it out in the field. But, it's cool the way it is, but and that's it. I just found this in Michigan, in my home state, when I went back there for Christmas. So, any questions?
Can you talk about how you got into photography and what drew you to architecture specifically?
How did I get into photography and why architecture? Sorry, is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Well, there I was. I was 17, and I was working around this photographer was one of the few and renowned architectural photographers in the country, if not world. And I was 17, and I started working around his yard for him. He needed somebody, and because I came from a large family, and I was right for it, whatever. So I spent 9 years with him. So I started with 17, I left. I was never in any hurry. I didn't know, I didn't choose like you guys are choosing to be here. I just sort of fell into it and began to like it and all that. In the last 3 years, and I mean, he did, if I didn't produce anything or I didn't take pictures, he wouldn't have really cared at that point. Except for then I learned how to work in the darkroom and things like that. And then I began shooting buildings as an architect. So my last, so just like with anything, if you don't get interested in it, you're not gonna get anywhere with something. Yeah. So I got interested, it took, and, does that kind of answer? Yeah. I fell into it and it was an apprenticeship. And so the same, before I left there, like at 23, this was being used by the Museum of Modern Art, so everybody in the architectural world saw that. And so I began, when I left Michigan and came here, I stayed with architectural photography, and then it just, people called me from all over the place. And, my archive is all that stuff, and I'm doing all the stuff I like myself. And I still get calls from all over the place for my photographs for one reason or another. So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Can you tell us more about how you work with architects? Because I wonder, do they tell you what views they want, what angles they want? Or
No.
is it you who has found a way to access the buildings?
Right, yeah. I mean, they don't really tell me what to shoot.
So
I mean-
can you talk about your process about how you find those very spectacular, very insightful
well, I
buildings?
mean, I was just out, I photographed this campus, I photographed this building for the architects 2-3 years ago, by the way. An architect they did come out because they brought some people and stuff. That was in the pandemic. But I mean, I don't need to get that much, I don't get much. I'll go all the way to Singapore and spend a week, and the architect, Moshe Seppi, didn't tell me anything, so. If that answers it, but there's sometimes I like it. You can't do it all alone. I don't really have an assistant anymore. I used to do assistants and fly all over the place. So I asked the architects to show up. Like at just January 2nd, I was down at the Superdome because they've done a lot of renovation in there. And the architect of that hired me, and we were there to shoot it the last day there was a game going on with the Saints. And he was with me, but it was on my own. It's kind of fun to bounce off what to do. And of course, then I ended up, I caught COVID after the it was super mild. Any other questions? Yeah, hey.
I have a kind of ethical question. I hope it doesn't come off as too judgy, but so one of the things that you use your photographic skills for and your photographs for is to document the vernacular and kind of a nostalgic idea of the vernacular. But then you also go around and buy the things that you photograph that make it the vernacular and nostalgic and take it out of the context of why you're making the photograph. So how do you resolve that?
Let's see. I'll give you an example. Well, the silo in Alabama I didn't, but I would have if we had the right place to take it. So what else? Well, that sign that was upside down, that was trash and was going to be thrown out, so I don't have anything to resolve there, I don't think. The Pine Bluff would have been, it would have changed. It wouldn't have stayed like that for very long. I mean, that was not something that was going to be renovated. That was, I know the difference between what you're saying and what I think I did, so I don't think
I mean, Kristen Berry bought the palm reading sign,
Yeah.
I mean, it would have they all would have stayed and naturally gone away and where people would have seen them.
Which one are you questioning?
Oh, no, I'm just asking like how
Yeah.
you resolve that. As someone who's interested in the vernacular,
Uh,
you know. and-
Yeah,
and-
well, I also, I guess I've sort of drawn to some things that were not gonna stay there, you know, so I don't, maybe, you know, very long, you know. So I thought these things would have a good life in my collection of photographs, in the vernacular, in the main streets and all that, so. I resolved that I knew that it wouldn't last there. And it would be thrown out, it would be gone, it would be, you know, demolished or something like that. So I guess that, to me, it was enough. Yeah.
What do you do with the stuff that you buy?
What's that?
What do you do with the things that you buy?
Well, I mean, I have all sorts of things I've collected from auctions or what have you. So, I mean, the first place I was able to exhibit that sign, the funeral home sign, was at the Historic Arkansas Museum. I mean, I didn't just bring it in and say, I want to put this up. The curator was all on board, and I got it restored and all that. And so that place is gone. You know, that house is gone. It was gone a long time ago. I think it's kind of cool that I have it. I guess I have it. Versus a museum would have to purchase it or fix it, or, you know. So I really don't have any problem with that. But what do I do with it? I hope to have those things in other exhibits. You know, like the cow. I think the cow would be awesome to have in a exhibit when I do the duck blinds.
Just another question, can you tell the story of this photograph? How you
Sure.
started?
So I'm living in Detroit, and this building was new, and I was on an assignment. My boss, the Hungarian, was out of the country, so they gave it to me. I was quite a youngster at the time, so I was working for a magazine. It was called Portfolio, which is an art magazine out in New York, and they looked at different things happening in the cities. Well, this was a big deal in Detroit. So I saw these trains came up. Well, I saw them in the evening when all the commuters were running to the trains to hop on the train. So I got a couple of shots and didn't have my view camera. It was just all pointed up and stuff with a Hasselblad. It was nice. So I went down the next morning knowing that this is the 8 o'clock train on the left and the 8:30 train or something on the right. I was set up, just firing off 4x5 transparencies. So that's an instant. There's nothing really set up on that one, but other than that I was there and anticipating the frame would be complete. And the 8:30 train came in, and then of course the smoke and all that. There's nothing doctored about that.
Where'd you grow up in Michigan?
Birmingham.
Did you really? I lived in Birmingham.
Good.
I was born in Ferndale, Michigan, which is,
Uh-huh.
I don't know, I guess 11 mile or something. Ardmore Hospital, that's torn down. Then we lived in Birmingham, and then Ann Arbor, and then Grayling. So did you spend all your time in Birmingham, or?
Yeah, Birmingham, and then here,
Uh-huh.
Grayling we had dairy farmers that were up in Gaylord and Grayling.
Yeah, yeah.
In our family, my mom's dad and stuff like that. Yeah, we were just up in Birmingham for Christmas, and we're now trying to sell our house that we had for 57 years up there, something like that. 60.
I remember the street, we lived on Witherby, which, who knows, but,
That sounds familiar.
yeah. A bunch of 50s mid-century, one after another. That's actually, that's a little heavy. So, what brought you from Michigan to Arkansas?
One of my older brothers also trained with that same Hungarian architectural photographers. He was a little older, he had left. And so I kind of left there to join him. But we only lasted a year together and split up, and because we were trying to do the same thing or whatever. It only lasted so long, and he went off to Austin, and I stayed here.
Okay. In Little Rock.
But I would get interested. Oh, I'm working in LA. I need to move to LA. Chicago, that'd be great.
So you were just kind of passing through, you just sort of stayed?
Just passing through? No. I came here. My brother was here.
He was here, so you went.
Yeah, and I joined him for about a year before I started my own thing and called it the Arkansas office because where I showed you that one picture on my Capitol Avenue. I was like going after architects to hire me. So I called it the Arkansas office, and I thought that sounded kind of international. And so I operated out of here, still am.
What year was that?
1980.
1980.
Yeah.
So you were in Detroit for the bad times.
You mean like the riots?
Maserati, no, after the riot, like the crack wars, and when Detroit really went down, when, remember Maserati Rick, the guy that was buried in that casket with the wheels on it, remember him? He must have been around for that, no?
No.
Maybe you were gone by then.
Yeah.
It was early 80s, I guess.
Okay, yeah. My family's still there in Birmingham. And like I said, I have there's 9 kids in our family.
Did you ever go up in the UP? You ever shoot any pictures in the UP?
Yeah, I've been out there, but I didn't. We would go up to Traverse City area and every summer from here. But I went into the UP, but I haven't done that much. I haven't done as much in Michigan, other than some Detroit things.
Yeah,
Every
the
time
UP
I go
has a
home.
similar aesthetic to rural Arkansas. There's some nice, the type of things that you find interesting.
Yeah.
It's all over up there.
Yeah, I hope that you saw that. I took my design sensibilities that I've been working with my whole career and looking at the vernacular, but with irony too. There's a bunch of irony in what I choose to shoot some things.
What duck camps did you go to in Stuttgart? The duck camps. Did you know the names?
Oh, I'm working my way around places, but like I was on. It's more like. The Sunken Lands was awesome. I got a bunch of cool stuff, and I kind of told you about that. And that's near Truman.
There's some really famous duck.
Yeah,
the tents, I think, is over there.
I'm in contact about trying to get into tents, but it's I like the most humble to something you don't know.
Yeah.
You can go into like that one with the toilet was Whit Stevens. You've heard of
That's
him?
what,
Yeah, that's his place, and he was really gracious to let me in there.
I've actually hunted that
Have you?
property. Yeah.
Well, that's where
I was there before he put his new house up there. Okay, sorry.
So I'm making my way around, and I kind of don't care what time of year I go to them. You can see some of those in the middle of the summer, because I just got started last year, and it isn't working out too much to go out there while they're hunting and stuff like that. So I've got, I can probably eventually if I want. I'm going to at least shoot for another full year. And, you know, hopefully could put together a book.
They're great photos. It's fascinating, like the history and the families, the history of these places and all that sort of thing. It's amazing. Your photographs are fabulous.
Well, I really like going out in the boats and treating them like important architecture. So,
Right.
so nobody's really focused on that. There's a lot of people that are already interested in working with me on a book. And I've been taking this writer who ran, his name is Jordan Hickey, somebody may have heard of him. He ran Arkansas Light for a number of years. And he did like a couple of, he did the Muskogee House story and different things on me. So I call him every once in a while to come with me. He might do the writing. But it's funny, I didn't really explain how. I was flying my drone over the rice fields. And then all of a sudden all the ducks and the geese showed up and the water and the fields and I was shooting all that. And I started noticing duck blinds. And so, that's different, that's cool. So I would fly my drone out to a duck blind, explore it all around it and stuff like that. And sometimes I'd walk out on the levees with my it's like a view camera, on a tripod and go shoot them. And then I saw in some books that there was these ones out in the waters, that were built. And I was like, how am I ever going to get that going? And I've been on a dozen or 15 swamp trips with people shooting blinds so far.
You said a second ago, I think a little, I'm not sure if I quite caught it, you said there's some serious irony in your progress.
Oh, well,
And then you said something about photograph these things, as if they were serious architecture.
yeah.
So you've got some kind of like real essential motivation for like why you're doing this.
Well, yeah, I'm motivated.
So what?
For sure. To go to just like the last 3 series with fields and from the air and Muskogee houses, I feel strongly about them. I'm totally motivated as,
And these are not assignments, right? This is not an assignment.
Oh, no,
This is just what you're doing.
yeah, you can see they're expensive documentations, yeah.
Yeah. So what is it really that
What
drives you?
motivates me or?
Yeah, what motivates it to take those?
Oh, well, I don't know, just like any other artist, I guess, really.
I think, so I'm like, that thing's beautiful, or I'm attracted to that place, or it's sort of part of my life or something. But you're really going out to these places, you're choosing them, put a lot of work into getting to that place.
right.
You really have to want it.
Yeah, well, I do. I've spent my career, from going to Jerusalem to Singapore to South Korea to Dallas, New York, wherever. It's going out. So now I'm right here in Arkansas, and I find it more as gratifying, if not more. Yes. And motivated. I'm motivated if I think it's a good choice. The Muskogee House, the Cottonseed, and I thought those were like incredible sculptures. And at the time, I couldn't think of a more important interior series to be working on in the state, anywhere. And I still kind of believe that. So I guess I've been trained, I'm a working photographer, and full-time. And yeah. But yeah.
Do you prefer digital or film?
Well, I'm totally digital now. I totally prefer the digital. All my stuff was 4x. I started with a 4x5 camera when I was in my 20s, with this guy that he bought me a Cinar view camera, and I had all the equipment I wanted and all that. And that's how I really started working from a tripod and a view camera from the very beginning. So in 2011, if you'd asked me that, I had a bag of 10 lenses and, for a view camera and another shoulder bag full of film holders and all that. And then I was going to Singapore for the third time, and we brought a digital camera. The assistant I was going with knew it, and I saw from there that, okay, I can stop this, and now, I mean, there's no turning back. I have no love, I love what I did with the other stuff, but the digital is amazing. I mean, I use a camera, that's called a phase 1. It's 150 megapixels right off the bat. And, like one lens mostly. All the stuff that I'm doing on the duck lenses with one lens. I get that, steer myself that close to them. They look like buildings to me. Like I'm looking at them as designed. So no, I'm not going to go back about film. I strongly believe what you can get with the digital is awesome.
What,
I mean, let's see. All this early stuff is film, which is cool, but let me get the escape. Let's see.
What about?
I'll just show you like the quality of these. Well, quality is all whatever. But these snow pictures.
What about the digital? We like that.
I mean, that's digital.
what kind of,
Well, it's just, one, I come back, I can plug it into the computer. I mean, with film, I was shooting it, and you couldn't get it developed here in Arkansas. I'd shoot hundreds of sheets on a project sometimes. So I'd ship it to Atlanta, cross my fingers that it would get back and they wouldn't mess it up. I'd be shoot for a week in Mexico or something and give it to FedEx to be shipped over to Atlanta and they develop it. Well, let's face it, come 2011, less and less film is being shot. So this company, this lab in Atlanta, I mean, there's going to be, it was just a matter of time before they would mess something up because, in my opinion, it was business was dropping. So it pointed towards that they weren't going to have a stable staff or, my guess that people wouldn't even care, and I was going to get burned. But anyway, I loved the digital when I found myself to the right equipment. Yeah, I thought it was great.
what kind of equipment do you use?
Well, I mean, I have right now for a DSLR, I guess you would call it. I have a Sony, and I think that's awesome. But I use the phase 1, which is a Dutch brand. But it's phase 1 and German lens, Rodenstock lens, and then Cambo body and stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, I have a fridge full of film, and I have boxes of Polaroid too. But I don't think I wouldn't. There isn't anything that I would be going for to me that I can't already move that file around wherever I want it. So, but what do you guys think about that? Is that I don't know. I don't have any romance about the film anymore, but I love my early, I love my early career, but captures have gotten better. But I'm not looking to show you some manipulated other format of, my stuff, my prints that I make that have been the Delta or going to be Hill Station or whatever. I guess I'm a real virtual photographer until I need to make some prints. So those are all, conventionally printed. I mean, I don't really even know anything about unconventional techniques. I've never really gone, I used a pinhole, but I made prints with that conventionally too. And yet, after that, I mean, all the film that I had, once scanning became something that you could do. Well, I mean, I scanned all my film. I scanned all my film to make any kind of print out of it. I'm not gonna be in a dark room, but I grew up being in a dark room and dodging and burning and all that, but now I can just like precisely pinpoint every little inch of an image, digitally, as opposed to being in the dark room. But I had years of that. So that was a good way to come into digital, but I was late coming into digital, to tell you the truth, I mean, I'd get on a job and the people who hired me were like, wow, I've never seen digital. I haven't even seen people using film before. So.